move my hands here. Where were we? Good and service. Ensuring gear and other goods. Looks like we were here in combat. Artisans tools. Equipment. Spyglass. Great. Adventuring gear and other goods. Several of the items listed on the above tables are described below, along with any special benefits that confer on the user. Caltrops. A caltrop is a 4-pronged iron spike, crafted so that one prong faces up no matter how the caltrop comes to rest. You scatter caltrops on the ground in the hope that your enemies step on them, or are at least forced to slow down to avoid them. 1 2-pound bag of caltrops confers an area 5 feet square. Covers. Each time a creature moves into an area covered by caltrops or spins around fighting while standing in such an area, it might step on one. The caltrops make an attack roll base. Attack bonus +0 against the creature. For this attack, the creature's shield, armor, and deflection bonuses do not count. If the creature is wearing shoes or the footwear, it gets a +2 armor bonus to AC. If the caltrop succeed on the attack, the creature has stepped on them. The caltrop deals 1 point of damage, and the creature's speed is reduced by 1/2 because its foot is wounded. This movement penalty lasts for 24 hours, or until a creature is successfully treated with a DC 15 heal check, or until it receives at least 1 point of magical curing. A charging or running creature must immediately stop if it steps on a caltrop. Any creature moving at half speed or slower can pick its way through a bed of caltrops with it says no trouble. Caltrops may not be effective against unusual opponents. Candle. A candle dimly illuminates a 5-foot radius and burns for 1 hour. Chain. Chains are assumed to be made of iron, have a hardness of 10, and possess 5 hit points. They can be burst with a DC 26 strength check. Stronger chains may exist at higher cost at the game's master's discretion. Crowbar. A crowbar gains a +2 circumstance bonus to strength checks when used for appropriate purposes. If used in combat, treat the crowbar as a one-handed improvised weapon that deals bludgeoning damage equal to that of a club of its size. Flint and steel. Lighting a torch with flint and steel is a full round action, and lighting any other fire with them takes at least that long. Grappling hook. Throwing a grappling hook successfully requires a use rope check, DC 10 +2 per 10 feet of distance thrown. Hammer. If a hammer is used in combat, treated as a one-handed improvised weapon that deals bludgeoning damage equal to that of a spike gauntlet of its size. Concussion. Put these on the index cards. Ink. This category of item describes basic coal-derived black ink. As much as 3 or 4 times the listed price. depending on the rarity of the plants and minerals used to make them. Let's see. I'm thinking, make a quest that's about gathering the supplies for ink for the apothecary, and then he shows you how he makes them. Yeah, it's a learning by playing D&D. Better get me some coffee. Mm-hmm. Ink. Yeah, I think I'll do a campaign about making ink. A little short one. Yeah. Publishing these little one-off quests, free for everyone to use. Jug, clay. This basic ceramic jug is fitted with a stopper and holds 1 gallon of liquid. Another interesting quest would be to go hang out with the pottery makers and learn about making pottery. And the whole point of my campaign is to learn about things. Learn how they're actually done. Fine. Jug, clay. Lamp, common. A lamp clearly illuminates a 15-foot radius, provides shadowy illumination out to a 30-foot radius, and burns for 6 hours on a pint of oil. You can carry a lamp in one hand. Lantern, bullseye. A bullseye lantern provides clear illumination in a 60-foot cone and shadowy illumination in a 120-foot cone. It burns for 6 hours on a pint of oil. You carry a bullseye lantern in one hand. Lantern, hooded. A hooded lantern clearly illuminates a 30-foot radius and provides shadow illumination of a 60-foot radius. It burns for 6 hours on a pint of oil. You can carry a hooded lantern in one hand. Lock. The DC to open a lock with the open lock skill depends on the lock's quality. Simple, DC 20, average, DC 25, good, DC 30, or superior, DC 40. Manacles and masterwork manacles. Manacles combine a medium creature. A manacled creature can use the escape artist skill to slip free. DC 30 or DC 35 for masterwork manacles. Breaking the manacles requires a strength check of DC 26 or DC 28 for masterwork manacles. Manacles have hardness 10 and 10 hit points. Most manacles have locks. Add the cost of the lock you want to the cost of the manacles. For the same cost, you can buy manacles for a small creature. For a large creature, manacles cost 10 times the indicated amount, and for a huge creature, 100 times this amount. That math is kind of odd, don't you think? Gargantuan, colossal, tiny, diminutive, and fine creatures can be held only by specially made manacles. Good morning! Hey, look, this is working. See if I can. It's about time I get back to reading. A lot of I've had to do a lot around here, and I got sick. Been a month with pneumonia. Now I'm on medication, but I feel like I can breathe good enough today to do some out loud reading. It's been rough. It's been hacking my lungs out. Oil. A pint of oil burns for 6 hours in a lantern. You can use a flask of oil as a splash weapon. Pint of oil. Wonder where, you see plenty of campaigns where, it's like, oh, you just go to the merchant and buy these things. I want my campaign to focus around, like, how things are made. It'll be how it's made, D&D edition. Go around to the wizards who make the oil and get some quests done. Pint of oil burns for 6 hours in a lamp. You can use a flask of oil as a splash weapon. Use the rules for alchemist fire, except that it takes a full round action to prepare a flask with a fuse. Once it is thrown, there is a 50% chance of the flask igniting successfully. You can pour a pint of oil on the ground to cover an area 5 feet square, provided that the surface is smooth. If lit, the oil burns for 2 rounds and deals 1d3 points of fire damage to each creature in the area. Ram portable. This iron-shod wooden beam. We have one of those around here somewhere. Gives you a +2 circumstance bonus on strength checks made to break open a door, and it allows a second person to help you without having to roll, increasing your bonus by 2. Just imagine that. Every time I go through these books and I read about these little things, it's like, okay, imagine that actually happened. Set up the scene where it's like you're in a dungeon and you want to break down this door. You happen to have the portable ram. Because earlier you acquired it somehow through some quest. I'd love to play that out, to write out how that would go. Publish these little one-off quests. Rope. Hemp. This rope has 2 hit points and can be burst with a DC 23 strength check. Rope. Silk. This rope has 4 hit points and can be burst with DC 24 strength check. It is so supple that it provides a +2 circumstance bonus on use rope checks. I have a whole. Oh, thank you, Georgia. Yeah, it's been rough. Thank you. I'm actually a lot better today. So ropes. And I had a little chat with the AI bots on Telegram about this. I have this whole book on how rope is made, and gotta work that into a quest. You gotta go hang out with the rope makers. Go questing with the rope makers and find out how rope is made, because you'd be surprised. You think, oh yeah, it's rope. I told this to my dad years ago after I'd read that book. And I'm like, oh yeah, what do you know about rope? He goes, oh, rope is rope. It's just rope. No. You start off with fibers, and you have to twist them what's called with the sun, which I think is like clockwise. And then you take the fibers that you've twisted with the sun, and you twist those together. Like you get like 3 of them, 2 or 3. Usually 2, 3, or 4 of these twisted with the sun fibers made into threads, and then you twist those against the sun, counterclockwise probably. I need to read that book again, but my damn computer broke. It was a Kindle book. You twist those against the sun, and then you take a few of these that you've made. You make a few like this, and you twist those together again with the sun, and that's how you get rope. It is much more complicated than you'd think, and yet it's a Stone Age technology. We know that the Stone Age people had ropes because there's carvings of them making rope ladders, and and I'd like in my quest for you to come across these carvings, because it's all about learning in my campaign. Come across the Stone Age carvings. I think they're in Spain. If I recall, the carvings of the rope ladders are in Spain somewhere. Spyglass. And boy, imagine learning about glass making and refraction. That would be a hell of a quest. Objects viewed through a spyglass are magnified to twice their size. We could, spyglass. That's simplistic. That's interesting. But what if we actually went through and learned about how that really works? This thing's interesting. This is a really neat little contraption. But if we really wanted to learn about what's the word I'm looking for? The magnification. It's like 2 times magnification, right? Magnified twice their size. What we could do is go through the whole what is times 2? What is times 4? What is times however many you can get with glass lenses. Hang out with the glass grinders. Have to come up with so many characters and quests, little scenarios. It'll all be worth it because you'll learn about things. It'll be fun. Torch. So, spyglass, objects viewed through a spyglass are magnified to twice their size, and we'll learn about that. I'm sure I've got books on it. Torch. A torch burns for 1 hour, clearly illuminating a 20-foot radius and providing shadowy illumination out to a 40-foot radius. If a torch is used in combat, treat it as a one-handed improvised weapon that deals bludgeoning damage equal to that of a gauntlet of its size, plus 1 point of fire damage. Vial. A vial holds 1 ounce of liquid. The stoppered container usually is no more than 1 inch wide and 3 inches high. Special substances and items. Any of these substances, except for the ever-burning torch and holy water, can be made by a character with the craft alchemy skill. A games master will restrict access to these items and deny starting characters the option of purchasing them with starting funds. Well, yeah, you could buy them, but I'm gonna make quests where you go and learn about crafting. Acid. You can throw a flask of acid as a splash weapon. Treat this attack as a ranged touch attack with a range increment of 10 feet. A direct hit deals 1d6 points of acid damage. Every creature within 5 feet of the point where the acid hit takes 1 point of acid damage from the splash. What kind of acid are we talking about? There's lots of different kinds of acid. There's citric acid, sulfuric acid, all sorts of acids in between. Alchemist's Fire. You can throw a flask of Alchemist's Fire as a splash weapon. Treat this attack as a ranged touch attack with a range increment of 10 feet. A direct hit deals 1d6 points of fire damage. Every creature within 5 feet of the point where the flask hits takes 1 point of fire damage from the splash. On the round following a direct hit, the target takes an additional 1d6 points of damage. If desired, the target can use a full round action to attempt to extinguish the flames before taking this additional damage. Extinguishing the flames requires a DC 15 reflex save. Rolling on the ground provides the target a +2 bonus on the save. Leaping into a lake or magically extinguishing the flames automatically smothers the fire. And here's an opportunity to teach stop, drop, and roll, I guess. Stop, drop, and roll. Don't ever forget that. And roll right into the lake. Antitoxin. If you drink antitoxin, you get a +5 alchemical bonus on fortitude saving throws against poison for an hour. Ever burning torch. This otherwise normal torch has a continual flame spell cast upon it. An ever burning torch clearly illuminates a 20-foot radius and provides shadowy illumination out to a 40-foot radius. Holy water. Holy water damages undead creatures and evil outsiders almost as if it were acid. A flask of holy water can be thrown as a splash weapon. Treat this attack as a ranged touch attack, but a range increment of 10 feet. A flask breaks if thrown against the body of a corporeal creature, but to use it against an incorporeal creature, you must open the flask and pour the holy water out onto the target. That seemed odd. Thus, you can douse an incorporeal creature with holy water only if you are adjacent to it. Doing so is a ranged touch attack that does not provoke attacks of opportunity. It doesn't? Are you sure? Because it seems like it would. If you're standing by the incorporeal creature and start pouring water on it, I mean, I think it would attack of opportunity. A direct hit by a flask of holy water deals 2d4 points of damage to an undead creature or an evil outsider. Each such creature within 5 feet of the point where the flask hits takes 1 point of damage from the splash. Temples to good deities sell holy water at cost. And I think to get some, you might have to go hang out there in your quest. But, you know, fighting zombies would be fun Halloween questing. Happen to pass through an enormous graveyard. And it's the time of year that the zombies come out. If you happen to be traveling at this time of year and you come across this graveyard, you might have to fight some zombies, and that would be fun. Woohoo! Questing. Smoke stick. This alchemically treated wooden stick instantly creates thick, opaque smoke when ignited. The smoke fills a 10-foot cube. Treat the effect as a fog cloud spell, except that a moderate or stronger wind dissipates the smoke in 1 round. The stick is consumed after 1 round, and smoke dissipates naturally. Sun rod. This 1-foot-long, gold-tipped iron rod glows brightly when struck. It clearly illuminates a 30-foot radius and provides shadowy illumination in a 60-foot radius. It glows for 6 hours, after which the gold tip is burned out and worthless. Gold-tipped iron rod. Tanglefoot bag. When you throw a tanglefoot bag at a creature as a ranged touch attack with a range increment of 10 feet, the bag comes apart and the goo bursts out. I thought this was that thing where you like a bag with a net in it. It's not, this is goo instead. Entangling the target and then becoming tough and resilient upon exposure to air. An entangled creature takes a -2 penalty on attack rolls and a -4 penalty to dexterity and must make a DC 15 reflex save or be glued to the floor, unable to move. Even on a successful save, it can move only at half speed. Huge or larger creatures are unaffected by a tanglefoot bag. A flying creature is not stuck to the floor, but it must make a DC 15 reflex save or be unable to fly, assuming uses wings, and fall to the ground. The tanglefoot bag does not function underwater. Good morning, good to see you. A creature that is glued to the floor or unable to fly can break free by making a DC 17 strength check or by dealing 15 points of damage to the goo with a slashing weapon. I wonder if you could use like acid on it. I wonder what acid would do to the goo. A creature trying to scrape goo off itself or another creature assisting does not need to make an attack roll. Hitting the goo is automatic. After which the creature that hit makes a damage roll to see how much of the goo was scraped off. Once free, the creature can move, including flying at half speed. A character capable of spell casting who is bound by the goo must make a DC 15 concentration check to cast the spell. The goo becomes brittle and fragile after 2d4 rounds, cracking apart and losing its effect. An application of universal solvent to a stuck creature dissolves the alchemical goo immediately. Okay, so you have to use solvent. Trying to use acid is probably not a good idea. Universal solvent. Is that even listed? It's not even in the list of items, is it? There's the solvent. Thunderstone. You can throw this stone as a ranged attack, with a range increment of 20 feet. When it strikes a hard surface or is struck soundly by a hard object or any attack capable of doing lethal damage, it creates a deafening bang that is treated as a sonic attack. Each creature within a 10-foot radius spread must make a DC 15 fortitude save or be deafened for 1 hour. That's rough. A deafened creature, in addition to the obvious effects, takes a -4 penalty on initiative and has 20% chance to miscast and lose any spell with a verbal component that it tries to cast. Since you don't need to hit a specific target, you can simply aim at a particular 5-foot square. Treat the target square as AC 5. Class 5. Thunderstones. In Gender's campaign for the bards, you had to go to this elemental plane to find the thunderstones. Tinder twig. The alchemical substance on the end of this small wooden stick ignites when struck against the rough surface. Creating a flame with a tinder twig is much faster than creating a flame with flint and steel or a magnifying glass and tinder. I've made fire with magnifying glass. Should have a whole quest on different methods of lighting fire. Yeah, a whole quest line where you have to go around to different. You go around to the pottery people and they make fire. And you learn about pottery. The pottery has to be there's a primitive pottery channel on YouTube where they just make a little campfire and fire the pottery on that. And sometimes it breaks. Valuable lessons. And charcoal too. Charcoal. Learning to make it. You can write this down. There's my paper. Start writing down these quest ideas. Tinder twig. Lighting a torch with a tinder twig is a standard action rather than a full round action, and lighting any other fire with one is at least a standard action. Tools and skill kits. These items are used in conjunction with class abilities and skills. In many cases, not having an appropriate item can prevent a character. It says for attempting, but that's gotta be a typo because the correct word in that sentence is from. Anyway, an appropriate item can prevent a character from attempting a given skill or impose a serious penalty. Conversely, particularly well-crafted tools and skill kits can provide their own forms of bonus to skill checks, as they are specifically designed to perform their given task more efficiently and enhance the skills of their users significantly. And so, there's a bunch of things here. Alchemist Lab, Artisan's Tools, Climber's Kit, Disguise Kit, Healer's Kit, Holy Symbol, Silver, Wooden Magnifying Glass, Musical Instrument, Merchant's Scale, Spell Component Pouch, Spellbook, Thieves' Tools, Masterwork Tools, Water Clock, and clothing items. Courier's Outfit, Entertainers, Explorers, Monks, Nobles, Scholars, Travelers. And again, my whole campaign is about learning things, so you gotta hang out with the tailor. Run fetch quests for the tailor. Learn about sewing. And since it takes place in olden days, it'll be hand sewing like I like to do. I mean, I have a sewing machine, but I really prefer hand sewing. It comes out stronger. I really think machine sewing is better to use as long straight lines and to hold things still while you come back and hand stitch it. Because man, if you haven't noticed, you can just easily pull machine sewing out. Yeah. Especially if you don't put the bobbin in. Yeah, and considering our larger campaign setting involves time travel, we could probably go through the whole, history of the development of the technology of sewing. Dude, that'll be awesome. This is what I think is fun. Scholar's outfit, traveler's outfit, food, drink, lodging, mounts, related gear. Anyway, I think I got past this section before. Wagons. I wanted to go through it briefly because I think we were on combat. How combat works. That's where my bookmark is. 1, 2, 1, 2, 6, 7, 8 pages. Maybe. Eight pages, I think, combat. And I'm going to start here at the top of 182. Okay, losing all my bookmarks. Stable characters and recovery. Yeah, there's massive damage. Dying, dead, stable characters and recovery. On the next turn after a character is reduced to between -1 and -9 hit points. -1 and 9 hit points on all subsequent turns. Roll a D% so a 100-sided dice golf ball to see whether the dying character becomes stable. He has a 10% chance of becoming stable. If he does not, he loses 1 hit point. A character who is unconscious or dying cannot delay his death by using any special action that changes the initiative count on which his action occurs. Couldn't you just roll 5 d20s? If the character's hit points drop to -10 or lower, he's immediately dead. You can keep a dying character from losing any more hit points and make him stable with a DC 15 heal check. If any sort of healing cures the dying character of even 1 point of damage, he stops losing hit points and becomes stable. Healing that raises the dying character's hit points to 0 makes him conscious and disabled. Healing that raises his hit points to 1 or more makes him fully functional again, just as if he'd never been reduced to 0 or lower. A spellcaster retains spellcasting capability she had before dropping below 0 hit points. A stable character who has been tended by a healer or who has been magically healed eventually regains consciousness and recovers hit points naturally. If the character has no one to tend him, however, his life is still in danger and he may yet succumb to his injury and slip away. Recovering with help. 1 hour after a tended dying character becomes stable, roll a D%. He has a 10% chance of becoming conscious, at which point he is disabled, as if he had 0 hit points. If he remains unconscious, he has the same chance to revive and become disabled every hour. Even if unconscious, he recovers hit points naturally. He is back to normal when his hit points rise to 1 or higher. Excuse me. More recovering without help. Attended in the Ginger's campaign. They had to put the dead elf in the care of a dwarf lady. And cast a very expensive spell on him to revive him. Recovering without help. A severely wounded character, left alone, usually dies. He has a small chance, however, of recovering on his own. A character who becomes stable on his own by making the 10% roll while dying, and who has no one to tend him, still loses hit points, just at a slower rate. He has 10% chance each hour of becoming conscious. Each time he misses his hourly roll to become unconscious, he loses 1 hit point. He also does not recover hit points through natural healing. Even once he becomes conscious and is disabled, an unaided character still does not recover hit points naturally. Instead, each day he has a 10% chance to start recovering hit points naturally, starting with that day. Otherwise, he loses 1 hit point. Once an unaided character starts recovering hit points naturally, he is no longer in danger of naturally losing hit points, even if his current hit point total is negative. And so, you imagine a character unaided. Where is he? If he's out in the wilderness, he's doomed. If he's in a town, but just off behind some building somewhere, he might be doomed. If he's in a building, he might be okay. You just gotta, as I go through this, I just imagine all these different scenarios that could be pieced together and built into a campaign. It's interesting. Healing. After taking damage, you can recover hit points through natural healing or through magical healing. And in case you cannot regain hit points past your full normal hit point total. Natural healing. With a full night's rest, 8 hours of sleep or more, and probably in a building, with bed and blanket, you recover 1 hit point per character level. Any significant interruption during your rest prevents you from healing that night. If you undergo complete bed rest for an entire day and night, you recover twice your character's level in hit points. Yeah. And even if you're in the hospital being taken care for, if a certain somebody calls and is ugly to you, it might hinder your recovery. He's always ugly to me when I'm in the hospital. He's always ugly. Store hit points. These usually work instantly and cannot be further improved by rest conditions or the use of the heal skill. So yeah, just druid casts healing. Cleric, druid. Anyway, healing limits. You can never recover more hit points than you lost. Magical healing won't raise your current hit points higher than your full normal hit point total. Healing ability damage. Healing, yeah, a healing spell won't do that, but like there are effects that temporarily increase your hit points. There are ways of doing that. Things like drinking certain potions, I think. Healing ability damage. Ability damage is temporary, just hit point damages. Ability damage returns at the rate of 1 point per night of rest, 8 hours, for each affected ability score. 1 point per 8 hours. 1 point. Certain spells can heal ability damage, but no magical or mundane effect does so unless it specifically states that it affects ability damage. Temporary hit points. Certain effects give a character temporary hit points. Yeah, okay. Like I was saying. When a character gains temporary hit points, note his current hit point total. When the temporary hit points go away, the character's hit points drop to his current hit point total. If the character's hit points are below his current hit point total at that time, all the temporary hit points have already been lost and the character's hit point total does not drop further. So if you're not calculating it by percentage, then it's like if you have 10 hit points left, and you had like an extra 5. Those extra 5 just disappear and you still have 10. You don't drop down to like 2. When temporary hit points are lost, they cannot be restored as real hit points can be even by magic. Increases in constitution score and current hit points. An increase in a character's constitution score, even a temporary one, can give her more hit points. Increasing the character's constitution score. An effective hit point increase. But these are not temporary hit points. They can be restored and they are not lost first as temporary hit points are. So increases in constitution score and current hit points. When a boost to the constitution score of a character or creature ends and the additional hit points gained by it are immediately subtracted from its current total. This can disable or kill a character if the subtracted amount exceeds the creature's hit point total by a sufficient amount to do so. Yeah, that's rough. Non-lethal damage. Dealing non-lethal damage. Certain attacks deal non-lethal damage. Other effects such as heat or being exhausted also deal non-lethal damage. When you take non-lethal damage, keep a running total of how much you have accumulated. Do not deduct the non-lethal damage number from your current hit points. It is not real damage. It is not real damage. I mean, it's real, but it's not lethal. Instead, when your non-lethal damage equals your current hit points, you are staggered. And when it exceeds your current hit points, you fall unconscious. It does not matter whether the non-lethal damage equals or exceeds your current hit points because the non-lethal damage has gone up or because your current hit points have gone down. Really. It doesn't matter if your current hit points. It does not matter whether the non-lethal damage equals or exceeds your current hit points because the non-lethal damage has gone up or because your current hit points have gone down. Non-lethal damage with a weapon that deals lethal damage. You can use a melee weapon that deals lethal damage to deal non-lethal damage instead, but you take a -4 penalty on your attack roll. I think I need a better explanation than that. Lethal damage with a weapon that deals non-lethal damage. Who thought of this? You can use a weapon that deals non-lethal damage, including an unarmed strike, to deal lethal damage instead to take a -4 penalty on your attack roll. That's a very strange explanation. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, having pneumonia was rough. Staggered and unconscious. When your non-lethal damage equals your current hit points, you are staggered. You can only... Oh, it's 8 a.m. Shut up. Oh, you're the sweet, sleepy little baby boy. He's a cute little baby boy. There. Where was I? Staggered and unconscious. When your non-lethal damage equals your current hit points, you are staggered. You can only take a standard action or a move action in each round. You cease being staggered when your current hit points once again exceed your non-lethal damage. When your non-lethal damage exceeds your current hit points, you fall unconscious. While unconscious, you are helpless. Spellcasters who fall unconscious retain any spellcasting ability they had before going unconscious. They do. Okay. Healing non-lethal damage. You heal non-lethal damage at the rate of 1 hit point per hour per character level. You heal from damage at the rate of 1 hit point per hour per level. Okay, if you're level 2, how many points you have? Okay, 1 hit point per hour per level. When a spell or a magical power cures hit point damage, it also removes an equal amount of non-lethal damage. Cures hit point damage. Okay. So do that math. I mean, like, if you're level 2 and you have so many hit points, you heal at the rate of 1 hit point per hour per level. What's the equation here? It does not explain. Movement, position, and distance. Miniatures are on the 30mm scale. A miniature figure of a 6-foot-tall human is approximately 30mm tall. A square on the battle grid is 1 inch across, representing a 5-foot by 5-foot area. And here's our ruler. It's over there. We'll get a little bit more coffee. This is an architect's ruler. It has different scale measurements all over it. But the one we're concerned with for game scale is this one. You know, moving position and distance. Miniatures are on the 30 millimeter scale. A miniature figure of a 6-foot tall human is approximately 30 millimeters tall. A square on the battle grid is 1 inch across, representing a 5-foot by 5-foot area. While actually miniatures may not be exactly this scale, as long as the measurement of a tactical map are attributed 5-foot sections and are easily determined as such, the movement rules below can be easily implemented. Tactical movement. How far can a character move? A character's speed is determined by your race and your armor. See Table 7.3, Tactical Speed. A character's speed while unarmored is equal to its listed base land speed. 7.3. Action attacks 7.2. 7.2, aid another, bull rush, dismiss a spell. Action. Training. 4-round actions. Move 5 feet through difficult terrain. Some situations your movement may be so hampered you do not have sufficient speed even to move 5 feet. Single square. In such a case, you may spend a full round action to move 5 feet, 1 square, in any direction, even diagonally. Even though this looks like a 5-foot step, it is not, and thus it provokes attacks of opportunity on it. Where's the... Yeah, it's this one. Yeah. I think that's this table. This says 7.2, actions in combat. Oh, here it is. It's on the next page. Okay. Encumbrance. A character encumbered by carrying a large amount of gear, treasure, or fallen comrades may move slower than normal. Hampered movement. Difficult terrain, obstacles, or poor visibility can hamper movement. Certain magical effects, movement rates, and class features can modify or bypass these hindrances. Movement in combat. Generally, you can move your speed in a round and still do something. Take a move action and a standard action. If you do nothing but move, that is, if you use both of your actions in a round to move your speed, you can move double your speed. If you spend the entire round running, you can move quadruple your speed. If you do something that requires a full round, you can only take a 5-foot step. Bonuses to speed. A barbarian has a plus 10 foot bonus. Plus 10 foot bonus to his speed, unless he's wearing heavy armor. Guidebook to Barbarians, Druids, and Rangers. And then the Book of Vile Darkness behind it. Started reading that. We're going to get through the rest of this. So a barbarian has a plus 10-foot bonus to his speed unless he's wearing heavy armor. Experienced monks also have higher speed unless they're wearing armor of any sort. In addition, many spells and magic items can affect a character's speed. Always apply any modifiers to a character's speed before adjusting the character's speed based on armor or encumbrance, and remember that multiple bonuses of the same type to a character's speed do not stack in keeping with the rules governing stacked bonuses and like types. So applying modifiers to a character. Oh. Hello, good morning. Good morning. It's time to get up, tiny boy. Oh, sweet baby. Pooh, you're stinky. Pooh, pooh, pooh. What? What do you want? Oh, cuddly boy. No more sleeping time. Anyway, apply any modifiers to a character's speed before adjusting the character's speed based on armor or encumbrance, and remember that multiple bonuses of the same type to a character's speed do not stack in keeping with the rules of governing stack bonuses and like types. Measuring distance on a tactical grid. Diagonals. When measuring distance, the first diagonal counts as 1 square, the second counts as 2 squares, the third counts as 1, the fourth is 2, and so on. You cannot move diagonally past a corner even by taking a 5-foot step. You can move diagonally past a creature, even an opponent. You can also move diagonally past other impassable obstacles, such as pits, assuming there is a route by which you can do so. Closest creature. When it is important to determine the closest square or creature to a location, if 2 squares or creatures are equally close, randomly determine which one counts as closest by rolling dice. Moving through a square. Friendly occupation. You can move through a square occupied by a friendly character unless you are charging. When you move through a square occupied by a friendly character, that character does not provide you with cover. Opponent's occupation. You cannot move through a square occupied by an opponent unless the opponent is helpless. You can move through a square occupied by a helpless opponent without penalty. Penalty. Some creatures, particularly very large ones, may present an obstacle, even when helpless. In such cases, each square you move through counts as 2 squares. So, larger creatures. Ending your movement. You cannot end your movement in the same square as another creature unless it is helpless. Overrun. During your movement, or as part of a charge, you can attempt to move through a square occupied by an opponent. So you can charge them and knock them down, probably. Maybe knock them prone. Tumbling. A trained character can attempt to tumble through a square occupied by an opponent. See the tumble skill. Failure typically ends a character's movement and opens it up to an attack of opportunity. Very small creature. A fine, diminutive, or tiny creature can move into or through an occupied square. The creature provokes attacks of opportunity when doing so. Square occupied by creature 3 sizes larger or smaller. Any creature can move through a square occupied by a creature 3 size categories larger than it is. A big creature can move through a square occupied by a creature 3 size categories smaller than it is. Designated exceptions. Some creatures break the above rules. A creature that completely fills the squares it occupies cannot be moved past, even with the tumble skill or similar special abilities. I mean, you might tumble past a dragon if it don't step on you, but not like a big gelatinous cube. We got one of those. Terrain and obstacles. Difficult terrain. Difficult terrain hampers movement. Hang on. Difficult terrain hampers movement. Each square of difficult terrain counts as 2 squares of movement. Each diagonal move into a difficult terrain square counts as 3 squares. You cannot run or charge across difficult terrain. If you occupy squares with different kinds of terrain, you can move only as fast as the most difficult terrain you occupy will allow. But that's what I like about druid characters. They have the feat that allows them to move through difficult terrain. Flying and incorporeal creatures are not hampered by difficult terrain, nor druids. Obstacles. Hey, you quit making noise. Obstacles. Like difficult terrain, obstacles can hamper movement. If an obstacle hampers movement but does not completely block it, each obstructed square or obstacle between squares counts as 2 squares of movement. You must pay this cost to cross the barrier, in addition to the cost to move into the square on the other side. If you do not have sufficient movement to cross the barrier and move into the square on the other side, you cannot cross the barrier. Some obstacles may also require a skill check to cross. On the other hand, some obstacles block movement entirely. A character cannot move through a blocking obstacle. Like if I had this thing on the game board, it takes up 2, 3, 4 inches this way and 3 inches that way. Nice tall rock. But yeah, it looks really good. It's a student something that student healthy building across from the rock at VC Live something.ntk.edu. So this is a model of a rock that actually exists on some campus somewhere. I wish I had more of them. They're so great. Anyhow, obstacles. Yeah, this would be a significant obstacle on a game board. It'd be a huge rock at this scale. Like difficult terrain, obstacles can hamper movement. If an obstacle hampers movement but does not completely block it, each obstructed square obstacle between squares counts as 2 squares of movement. You must pay this cost to cross the barrier, in addition to the cost to move into the square on the other side. If you do not have sufficient movement to cross the barrier and move into the square on the other side, you cannot cross the barrier. Some obstacles may also require a skill check to cross. On the other hand, some obstacles block movement entirely. The character cannot move through a blocking obstacle. Flying and incorporeal creatures can avoid most obstacles. Squeezing. In some cases, you may have to squeeze into or through an area that isn't as wide as the space you take up. You can squeeze through or into a space that is at least half as wide as your normal space. Each move into or through a narrow space counts as if it were two squares. And while squeezed in a narrow space, you take a -4 penalty on attack rolls and a -4 penalty to armor class. When a large creature, which normally takes up 4 squares, squeezes into a space that's 1 square wide, the creature's miniature figure occupies 2 squares centered on the line between the 2 squares. For a bigger creature, center the creature likewise in the area it squeezes into. Yeah, I'm not sure how to manage that one. A creature can squeeze past an opponent while moving, but it cannot end its movement in an occupied square. To squeeze through or into a space less than half your space's width, you must use the Escape Artist skill. You cannot attack while using Escape Artist to squeeze through or into a narrow space. You take a -4 penalty to armor class, and you lose any dexterity bonus to armor class. Special movement rules. These rules cover special movement situations. Accidentally ending movement in an illegal space. Sometimes a character ends its movement while moving through a space where it is not allowed to stop. When that happens, put your miniature in the last legal position you occupied, or the closest legal position if there's a legal position that's closer. Double movement cost. When your movement is hampered in some way, your movement usually costs double. For example, each square of movement through difficult terrain counts as 2 squares, and each diagonal move through such terrain counts as 3 squares, just as 2 diagonal moves normally do. If movement cost is doubled twice, then each square counts as 4 squares, or as 6 squares if moving diagonally. If movement cost is doubled 3 times, then each square counts as 8 squares. 12 if diagonal, and so on. This is an exception to the general rule that 2 doublings are equivalent to a tripling. Complicated math. Minimum movement. Despite penalties to movement, you can take a full round action to move 5 feet, 1 square, in any direction, even diagonally. This rule does not allow you to move through impassable terrain or to move when all movement is prohibited. Such movement provokes attacks of opportunity as normal, since despite the distance traveled, this move is not technically a 5-foot step. Now, what's the difference, though? Note that this special kind of movement does not apply to characters that are held by an effect or otherwise completely unable to move due to some outside force. I guess if you have the goo bag on you. This special kind of movement does not apply to characters that are held by an effect, otherwise completely unable to move. Big and little creatures in combat. Creatures smaller than small or larger than medium have special rules relating to position. That's all it says. Tiny, diminutive, and fine creatures. Very small creatures take up less than 1 square of space. This means that more than one such creature can fit into a single square. What is it, Stinky Boy? Mm. 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 What is it, Stinky Boy? Anyway, creatures smaller than small, larger than medium. There's special rules relating to position. Tiny, diminutive, and flying creatures. Very small creatures take up less than 1 square of space. This means that more than one such creature can fit into a single square. A tiny creature typically occupies a space only 2.5 feet across, so 4 can fit into a single square. 25 diminutive creatures or 100 fine creatures can fit into a single square. Creatures that take up less than 1 square of space typically have a natural reach of 0 feet. So I suppose that means fairies. Alright, let's see if we can complete that. Was page 185. Now we're on 186. Let's see if we can finish it. Meaning they cannot reach into adjacent squares. They must enter an opponent's square to attack in melee. This provokes an attack of opportunity from the opponent. You can attack into your own square if you need to, so you can attack such creatures normally. Since they have no natural reach, they do not threaten the squares around them. You can move past them without provoking attacks of opportunity. They also cannot flank an enemy. Imagine a whole swarm of fairies. You could just whack them with a newspaper. A swarm of insects, maybe. Speaking of the white flies outside, are atrocious. Do that. Very large creatures take up more than 1 square. Creatures that take up more than 1 square typically have a natural reach of 10 feet or more, meaning that they can reach targets even if they aren't in adjacent squares. Unlike when someone uses a reach weapon, a creature with greater than normal natural reach, more than 5 feet, still threatens squares adjacent to it. A creature with greater than normal natural reach usually gets an attack of opportunity against you if you approach it, because you must enter and move within the range of its reach before you can attack it. This attack of opportunity is not provoked if you take a 5-foot step. What? Explain that one. Large or larger creatures using reach weapons can strike up to double their natural reach, but cannot strike at their natural reach or less with the weapon, I guess. Combat modifiers. Basic combat has been covered by the rules above, but there are numerous instances and conditions that can complicate a battle. Technically minded players can use these to their advantage, while encountered enemies with the skills or abilities to do so may impose them against their foes. In any case, these factors can combine to make nearly impossible battles merely difficult and make an undefeatable enemy vulnerable to a strategically planned assault. The true finesse of d20 combat exists in these modifiers. Cover. To determine whether your target has cover from your ranged attack, choose a corner of your square. If any line from this corner to any corner of the target square passes through a square or border that blocks the line of effect or provides cover, or through a square occupied by a creature, the target has cover +4 to AC. When making a melee attack against an adjacent target, your target has cover if any line from your square to the target square goes through a wall, including a low wall. When making a melee attack against the target that isn't adjacent to you, such as with a reach weapon, use the rules for determining cover from ranged attacks. Low obstacles and cover. A low obstacle, such as a wall no higher than half your height, provides cover, but only to creatures within 30 feet of it, 6 squares. The attacker can ignore the cover if he's closer to the obstacle than his target. Stop kicking things, you little crud. Cover and attacks of opportunity. You cannot execute an attack of opportunity against an opponent with cover relative to you. Table 7 through 4, creature size and scale. I'm losing the page. Creature size, space, and natural reach. So, a fine creature takes up half foot space as 0 natural reach. Diminutive, 1 foot, 0. Tiny, 2.5 foot, 0. Small, 5 foot. Natural reach, 5 foot. Medium, 5 foot, 5 foot. Large, 10 foot, 10 foot. Large, tall, large, long, 10 foot, and 5 foot. Huge, tall, 15 foot, 15 foot. Huge, long, 15 foot, 10 foot. Go back over there. Follow up. 20 huge, long, 15 foot, 10 foot. Gargantuan, tall, 20 foot, 20 foot. Gargantuan, long, 20 foot, 15 foot. Colossal, tall, 30 foot, 30 foot. Long, 30 foot, 20 foot. These values are typical for creatures of the indicated size. Some exceptions exist. Cover and reflex saves. Alright. We're being difficult. We try and get to the end of this page, and then that'll be it for this session of reading the Mongoose Pocket Player's Handbook. Cover and reflex saves. Cover grants you a +2 bonus on reflex saves against attacks that originate or burst out from a point on the other side of the cover from you. Note that spread effects can extend around corners and thus negate this cover bonus. Spread effects, I guess, a poison gas. Cover and hide checks. You can use cover to make a hide check. Without cover, you usually need concealment, see below, to make a hide check. Soft cover. Creatures, even your enemies, can provide you with cover against melee attacks, giving you a +4 bonus to AC. However, such soft cover provides no bonus on reflex saves, nor does soft cover allow you to make a hide check. Big creatures in cover. Any creature with a square larger than 5 feet in 1 square determines cover against melee attacks slightly differently than smaller creatures do. Such a creature can choose any square that it occupies to determine if an opponent has cover against its melee attacks. Similarly, when making a melee attack against such a creature, you can pick any of the squares it occupies to determine if it has cover against you. Total cover. If you do not have line of effect to your target, he is considered to have total cover from you. You cannot make an attack against a target that has total cover. Varying degrees of cover. In some cases, cover may provide a greater bonus to AC and reflex saves. In such situations, the normal cover, the bonuses to AC and reflex saves can be doubled to +8 and +4 respectively. A creature with this improved cover effectively gains improved evasion against any attack to which the reflex save bonus applies. Furthermore, improved cover provides a +10 bonus on hide checks. Concealment. To determine whether your target has concealment from your ranged attack, choose a corner of your square. If any line from this corner to any corner of the target square passes through a square or border that provides concealment, the target has concealment. When making a melee attack against an adjacent target, your target has concealment if his space is entirely within an effect that grants concealment. When making a melee attack against a target that isn't adjacent to you, use the rules for determining concealment from ranged attacks. So, table 7 through 5, attack roll modifiers. Attacker is dazzled, melee -1, range -1. Entangled, -2, -2. Flanking defender, +2. Invisible, +2, +2. On higher ground, +1, +0. Prone, -4. Shaken or frightened, -2, -2. Squeezing through a space, -4, -4. So if the attacker is dazzled, the attacker is dazzled, his melee is -1 and range is -1. So it's melee and ranged. Shh. Alright. An entangled character also takes a -4 penalty to dexterity, which may affect his attack roll. The defender loses any dexterity bonus to AC. This bonus does not apply if the target is blinded. Most ranged weapons cannot be used while the attacker is prone, but you can use a crossbow or shuriken while prone at no penalty. All right, and this last paragraph says this last paragraph says, in addition, some magical effects provide concealment against all. In addition, some magical effects provide concealment against all attacks, regardless of whether any intervening concealment exists. Page 188 is where we're leaving it for today. Thank you for joining me on reading the Mongoose Pocket Player's Handbook. Thank you, Working Conservative.